Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Ron Shigeta with us today. He's a founder at Elevated.eco. He's a mentor and advisor for first in class startups in bio, food, and health at iaccelerate.tech in the SF Bay area. Ron, I'm glad to have you on. Tell us a bit more about yourself and what you've been up to.
Yeah, great to meet you, Charles. So I am a PhD in biotech, biochemistry, and I was working as a as a scientist in the Bay Area here, but I really moved to the Bay Area to get involved in entrepreneurialism. So uh, it's been 10 years ago now, but I co-founded the world's first biotech entrepreneurial lab in Berkeley, California. That lasted only 9 months, and we were hired into Start Indie Bio, which is a biotech accelerator that's still ongoing in San Francisco and New York. I was there for 4 years, and we covered the first 80 or so companies in that portfolio, and we had an amazing time. And I've gone on and uh, I've worked with about 140 startups at this point as an advisor or team member, and I also came in and out of a couple of my own startups. And Elevated.eco is my newest attempt.
There you go. And yeah, why not start your fund earlier? Why not go into this instead of advising? Because most investors do provide a good form of advisory, right?
Yeah, it's a little embarrassing. I probably should have started a fund, but I just didn't sort of like. I was having a really great time. The thing about it is there's different kinds of investing, and so as working in an accelerator is very different than being a regular venture capitalist. An accelerator, we had 6 months or more with each of the teams after we invested with them, and they were coming in, and our value was to actually make those teams successful. And so it was a real amazing. It was also my first job in investing, and just the challenge of taking someone who has great potential and helping them bring out that potential and sort of get on the road to success. That was a real head rush for me. I just enjoyed it so much. We worked like crazy, crazy hours. That's not a typical venture capital thing either. And we were pretty successful. We had at one point we had an 80% funding rate coming out of the classes. Um, and I just felt like, oh, if I can learn to make the entrepreneur successful, it's going to improve my final yield. And so I thought I would just try to continue with those accelerator sort of like skills going forward with my own sort of like personal accelerator that I did. It's been about 8 years I've been doing that, and I was just having too much fun to do anything else.
So you like pain, don't you? Because bringing these companies to market is incredibly hard, isn't it?
Actually, the pain is all theirs. I mean, you have so much transformation that you have to engage, especially as a first-time founder. Even if you are not a first-time founder, often the founders are tackling new markets or new kinds of classes of products, and just sort of framing that mindset right and really having someone to help them dig into that was really enjoyable. I actually got more and more efficient at it over time as well. And so I wouldn't have to spend, in the early days of Indie Bio, I was learning a lot, and I would be spending 60 hours a week there. I think, now I kind of know what I'm doing, and I sort of have a small number of hours I have to do to engage somebody. But, if someone has a real need, if a client has a real need, like they have a big pitch coming up, or before the YC deadlines for submissions, we sometimes go several hours a week. But the real secret to that is there's a lot of homework. Like, I'm not going to write your deck for you, but we'll talk about your deck. We'll go over your deck slide by slide, and we'll talk about every single word, every pixel if we have to. But then they're going to have to make the deck themselves, right? Otherwise, if you have an advisor make your deck, you don't really know what you're talking about anyway. There's no point to it.
Interesting. And what do you advise them on the most? Is it GTM or is it fundraising, remaking their pitch? What's your focus normally as an advisor?
Well, for me, high value meant that there wasn't going to be any bullshit. And so, advising on investing is creating the best company that you can have, and to sort of understand your problem so well that your message is extremely clear and it's appealing as an investment. A lot of people don't, first time, I'm sure you've seen this, a lot of people come in the first time and they're pitching early. They don't even know why anybody would like the company. They know why they like it, and that's enough for them. Of course, that's not enough for any investor. So there's a lot of deep psychological work in terms of a company being understood by its own founders. There's a lot of this is also what we do a lot. What I did a lot in the accelerator too is that there's all these layers. You have this fantastic idea or a new technology or a new approach, and there's all these applications. And usually, what makes money is not the first thing that you think. People are pretty ignorant about go to market. And that's why all the YC and startup people are saying, like, yeah, find product market fit, find product market fit. I mean, it's kind of like
It's a
people say
religion.
that. Yeah, it's kind of like hello, goodbye. It's just a phrase people throw around, but actually, when you're engaged in it, it's the most critical decision that you can make is to understand who's going to buy this and what they're going to buy it for, and maybe why they wouldn't want to buy it, and how can you deal with that. It's interesting because for me as a PhD scientist, I'm very interested in the technology as well that's underlying all these sort of things that's creating the value. And so actually, sometimes we would change the technology a little bit, adjust it toward go-to-market value and that product market fit. So it's really kind of an organic thing with me, and we try to look at from all these different sides and make all those adjustments necessary to make the best pitch and the best company that you can have.
And is it focus on one channel and one ICP until it works? Like when is time to pivot and know that you don't have PMF?
Well, pivots come after you have a thesis and you try it out and you talk to customers and you find out that you were wrong. Before that, we try to think about, we do a lot of sort of planning. Ideally, I'd like to make a startup about 3 months before they have to raise. And then we would go over several iterations about this and then do some research and try to figure out and then choose wisely. But that doesn't mean there aren't pivots later. Yeah, but for me, companies need several months just to sort of get going. There's all that deep work that's needed usually. If it's really innovative and it's really different. If you're just copying another startup that's out there, then you don't really need someone like me.
Right. We have a question from the audience. She said Ron, also not Ton. So she misspelled, but
It's fine.
rate the craziness factor, magical thinking for founders. In my honest opinion, it's needed and needs to be managed. Thoughts?
If a founder's really crazy, you can't stop them.
I call it delusion. They absolutely need to be delusional. There's
Yeah.
no
There's good delusion and bad delusion, and you just try to sort of like nudge things toward good delusion.
Yeah, because you need to stay honest, right? You can't inflate your metrics. You can't do illegal stuff, but you absolutely need to have 100% almost of the time positive mindset. Like if you let doubt creep in, then you're on your way down.
So there's one thing, and Charles, tell me if you've not heard this almost every time you talk to an advisor, but the word that advisors use all the time that nobody ever else uses is coachability. Basically,
Oh, that's good.
right. It's just sort of like if you're going to engage an advisor and they have something to give you, you should take it. That doesn't say that you have to obey what the advisor's saying. It's not an order, but it's an influence. And so you accept influence and try things out. And doing that, what you have is you have your taste starts to improve. You sharpen your knife. And we make a lot of suggestions in our calls. I don't expect them all to do miracles, but it happens often enough that it's worthwhile. But the practice of sort of looking for advice and information outside of your little bubble is key. And so that's a good kind of crazy. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there. There's no evidence that that's true, but it turns out to be right if you have the right attitude toward it.
Well, I mean, it's a sign of intellectual and emotional maturity, right? Like, I think I call it quantum thinking, right? A lot of people cannot hold two opposing thoughts in their mind at the same time, right? AKA, I need to have a high ego, but I also need to have zero ego and be open and listen. The
Mm.
the ego part is to propel you, right? Like gets you out of bed of morning, ambition. Else you wouldn't even try. You would go and be normal and have another job, but you also need to keep your mind open. I think I only in the last couple of years have I started thinking in binary terms in which I can hold two thoughts at the same time and decide that they're not really opposed to one another. They're actually complementary. What do you think about that?
Oh, I totally agree that like if you really are being honest and you've really done your work, you can unify your energy, right? Our desire to sort of make progress as startups, ideally, is because we're bringing something so important and has to be done, and that you can do it and you're going to do it is a little bit of an illusion, but it's a really positive one. It's a good attitude toward actually getting things done. I think I think we have to get past the delusion onto the reality, and the reality is that amazing things happen, and you're the person that can do it. That's really where everything comes together, and it can happen if you're young. You don't have
Yeah,
to be an illusion. You don't have to be a bullshitter.
but
But
there's like such small percentages, right? Especially in biotech, in my opinion, is like winner takes all. It's like all or nothing, sort of. But even if you don't win, even if you don't have that massive exit, I think you'll learn a lot, right? And you'll get some connections and you'll possibly get some money. And even if you fail, if you've shown grit, hard courage, smartness, and I don't know, give their investors their money back, at least maybe they're going to invest in you again and you'll have another shot, right? It's not like a one-sided door. It's a revolving door in which you have multiple shots at the net. Do you agree with that?
yeah, it and that's an important thing to say. I really like what you said there, that I mean, the only way through is to do the best you can and to really, really push hard. And and no matter what the outcome is, you're going to get something out of it. Uh, and I don't know what else to say. If you're open to opportunity and you take it, something will come out of your work. And
About building the core team, which is still fundamental, even in the age of AI. I think the 1% type of team members won't disappear, right? Like the 1000x engineer, they're not about to be erased because they have taste, right? And they have so many other mental models. How do you find these guys? I guess is Marianne's question.
mm-hmm. I think
Founding
that
team, right?
Yeah, I think the I mean, the co-founders are the first sale that you make for your startup. And some people can't do it. I mean, I think about, for us, maybe 30 to 40% of the teams were still solo founders. And so I don't always push super hard on that, but you have to, I mean, the value of a co-founder is that there's someone you can talk to and they're going to give you honest feedback. Honest feedback is one of the rarest things to get. Investors won't really give you completely 100% honest feedback. Um, uh, Obviously your fans won't. The employees who depend on you for their salary, they're not going to. And so you have to really go out there and seek it out. And if someone's sitting next to you in the same office, the stats show it's really important for survival. Um, but that kind
I
of is what keeps people in. I mean, if you have that type of relationship, if you're sharing the mission with someone else, I just want to say that if you're sharing that mission with someone else and they really believe that they're partners with you, they're going to have a hard time leaving, and that's also key to the core team.
Yeah, I haven't cracked that code even after 10 years in the game. I recruited like 2,000 employees in the last 10 years as an entrepreneur. I stopped hiring. I replaced most of my people with AIs, which also wasn't the right decision. And only as of late, I've got myself a new co-founder. We started hiring again. And so hard. I think it's the hardest thing in startups. I posted a chat, a podcast by Naval Ravikant in the comments here on the public chat, and you can see. I think he phrased it really well. He, if I can paraphrase the podcast, like hire some genius, right? And have very, very high expectations for
Mhm.
founding team members and take your time to hire them. Me, I don't have any advice to give on that because, like I said, I'm better at building systems and interacting with robots than most humans. But if I do hire them, it's gonna be founders, it's gonna be entrepreneurial people for sure, and people I can have normal chats with, and I don't need to woo them with money as much as culture, and they just find a lot of value spending time with me. But yeah, how my question for you is like, if they're that much of geniuses, these founding team members, why wouldn't they go and start their own companies? Right? Like that, isn't that a good
Um,
question?
I think the mission is what's really unique. You can't just sort of get a great startup out of your head every day. I think when I'm doing in concept mode, I have a journal and I'll write down actually a startup idea almost every day. And I have a long list of ones. I throw the ones away I really don't like, but I have a long list of them that I'm interested in. And I think that even out of those, I can only choose one. I think it's really rare to get a fantastic idea and then have someone that you can talk to about it who shares that belief. That's pretty hard. I think that
Oh yeah,
there's no, it's just chemistry. And like, if you have a good co-founder, it's just because you ran into them, and it's
but
good to be
they're friends, right? Like they're friends straight up. Most
they
of
all
them.
know each other beforehand, or they had this really intense conversation at a meetup or something, and then they started hanging out more. It's you can't just sort of like hang a shingle out. We need a co-founder. It's not going to get you a real co-founder. Maybe eventually it'll turn that way, but it takes time and it's chemistry.
Yeah, and like you said, you need to have a co-founder that also gets the idea. So product market founder fit, which is pretty much rocket science. It's like if all stars need to align, right? What problems you often see in your niches in bio and in health? Yeah, what problems do you see most of the time early stage? Is it fundraising? Is it co-founder chemistry? Is it they suck at GTM or all of the above?
Yeah, I think, well, as synthetic biology and biotech has gone through a bubble. It was really going hot and heavy a few years ago. That bubble popped, and now it's getting a lot more spare. Back in that time, often there was go-to-market problems. Like people would claim they were going to go to market and they would know nothing about the market. That caused a lot of confidence failure. The VCs also kind of tended to believe people more at the time. And so that was also inconvenience. I'm going to spread the blame evenly there. Um, I think now, I think because biotech is so technically heavy and it's not really strongly associated with commercial products, very few people who are entrepreneurs have the experience. And so I would say go to market continues to be the biggest problem. And that's also true for SaaS too. So beware, really be thoughtful about that if you're going to go into something like biotech.
Yeah, you mentioned some of your success stories. Can you mention some of them here and try to point out the why?
Yeah. Well, we had a startup from IndieBio that's it's called Synthex. They had a very novel way of finding drug lead compounds for a novel kind, a really unusual class of compounds that might be used as drugs. Um, and they, since they were off on their own, they had to sort of communicate to people why this new class of compounds would be useful for therapeutics. And they got some money from the startup people, and then eventually they sort of found their way into deals with Bristol Myers Squibb and some other large pharmaceutical companies. And that's a real company that sort of sprung up basically from the CEO. She was finishing her PhD, and her co-founder Charlie, he was doing a postdoc. They met at Toronto, and so and I just ran into them recently, and they're still going strong. It's been like 8 years, so I'm super proud of that. They still have to sort of push a hit to market, but they have the money to do it. They've got some biobucks to do it, and if they do, of course, that'll be a multi-billion-dollar return. So I'm super proud of them, mostly for sticking out. I mean, the return sounds great, but they've been working at that for 8 years in ignominy. Nobody's inviting them to talk. They're not industry stalwarts yet, but they have something. and they're patient with that. They didn't overhire. They were really conservative with their money, but they did what they had to do to hit the next milestone. That was great execution so far. Um,
And isn't it challenging to transit from an academia mindset to a business mindset?
that is exactly what we were trying to do at IndieBio. That's why the team was so hot, is that we would really focus on that, on what people don't know. I think so. Let's talk about accelerators a little bit. I'm not going to name names. Some of them are obviously much more successful than others. There must be thousands of accelerators on the face of the planet right now, and uh, of course, when you're looking for funding, any of them that can fund you is not necessarily a bad opportunity. But in terms of how much you grow up during accelerator, I think there's this sort of there's this sort of relationship sort of mismatch. Either you're kind of on the high end on the fast end of the class, and they really want to keep you. They want to establish a good relationship, and they won't necessarily tell you they won't sort of push against you. I think that someone who goes into accelerator doesn't get pushback needs to go asking for it. And I there's two ways that I rank accelerators. One is, how likely are you to get an investment? Some accelerators are so damn good that you're going to get investment just for being in the accelerator. But
YC.
yeah, not to name names, right? The number one accelerator in the world, and YC has a community of thousands of people who've been through the program who lurk there waiting for the next group to come in so they can throw money at them because they trust YC.
Yeah, I'm working with them. Pioneer Health Fund. Actually, we should talk after the pod. But yeah, that's definitely one.
They love YC for good reasons. They know where they're getting there. Other accelerators that are sort of up and coming, I would say Berkeley Skydeck is actually another good one that's sort of doing well right now. They have a great network of advisors, and they sort of get people in there working with you on a basis. But the question is, how honest is the relationship? And so I think even in a great accelerator like that, again, your attitude about what is the advice doing for you and what do you expect out of that, and understanding how much you need to grow up, even if you're already an adult. Those things are, get the most you can out of an experience like that. You have to take time to do it, and really be attracted and look for those opportunities, because it's leaving money on the table. Even if you get investment, you're going to fail later if you don't learn those lessons. You're just going to have to do them sometime, or you're going to fail.
There you go. Hey, we're gonna take one last question for today from Tarva. So, uh, new business owner, good results with outbound and personal branding agency, but struggling staying consistent with boring work like sending cold outreach and DMs. What would you do in that case? Is his question. I'll start. Maybe you can think about your answer,
Yeah.
but I feel like automation, right? Like me, I run cold outbound, and it takes what, like 30 minutes per day, my own campaign. It's very it's few time, and it yields
Mhm.
massive results, both from getting clients, partners, investors, right? So I think there's a way to automate all of this. But also, I'll also preface with my first business 10 years ago. I started making cold calls, like to get clients, and that was incredibly time extensive, but that was needed to get me capital. I got that realtor to pay me 4K for a website, and that got me kick-started, right? You absolutely need to invest the time to get capital when you start. What do you think?
I think so. I think, like, obviously, Charles, you have been in this game a long time. You know what you want. You know who to get, and you know sort of how to pull them in, and that's kind of subconscious for you. I think that when you're getting started for a new business owner, I think you cannot. I really don't think, even if you hire somebody to do your funnel for you, you should never try to buy traction, right? It's always you. You're the owner, right? If you don't care about your funnel, if you don't watch all the numbers progress along, if you aren't super nerding out on it, then it's like saying, I don't want to breathe. I don't need my heart to circulate blood. I'm okay. I'll just pay someone else to do that. I think that as you move down the funnel stages, I've become quite a funnel nerd. I break everything into stages and I watch the progress from one stage to the next like a hawk. I think even every one or two pitches very early on, or one or two sort of like emails, you can sort of get a read on what you're doing, and then you need to be adjusting it. Basically, the messaging and how people are describing what you're doing and how you're appealing to people. You have to care about that. That's where all the sales come from, right?
Yeah, the core needs to be strong for sure. Ron, thanks for coming on the podcast. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, I have a website, accelerate.tech, where I talk about my advisory, and I'm on LinkedIn here. I guess you guys can look my name up on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to find. I'm the only Ron Shigeta.
All right. So that was Ron and Charles for another founder.